I hope I'm remembering where we're up to, because I think I got mixed up on.
We're up to
I think the Mishnah on Lamed Vav Amid Beis, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Zok the Mishnah, Daf Lamed Vav Amid Beis, about 7 lines from the bottom. Sanhedrin Hoysek Kechatzi Goyer Nagula. The Sanhedrin was arrayed like a half circle, a semicircle, and they were sitting around like what you very often see on a dais. It's a common way. I think like in the UN, it's often set up that way. So that all of the members of the Sanhedrin could see one another. When one's arguing, you could see the other one. There were 2 court recorders, one on the right and one on the left. They would write down the reasons for the ones who were saying, the Dayanim who was saying that he should be innocent, they'd write that down. The one said guilty, they'd write that down. Like the Gemara explained before, the reasons why that was necessary. Yehuda says you needed 3. There was a third one who wrote down both. And Rashi explains this is not really a machlokes. This is just in order to be certain that we got everything down correctly, in order to have a corroboration. He had a second court recorder for this talking about Dini Nefashos to make sure everything was correctly written down. There were 3 rows of Talmidei Chacham in front of the Bezdin. And everyone was in the proper, in the place where they belong. That means that the 3 rows, these were Talmidim, these were the possible future Dayanim, everyone sat according to seniority. The most senior ones were in the first row, the next senior in the second, and the third most senior in the third. And as we're going to see, not only were they in the proper order, I think they were also from right to left. The most chashuv one was on the right, and the least chashuv was on the left. So the reason for this, we've had before in Sanhedrin, we're on Dapam Lamed Zayin Amin Aleph. The reason why you had to have these extra rows of Talmidim in the Sanhedrin is in case somebody wasn't able to decide, so you'll have to bring someone else in. So if that's what happened, you had to give smicha to someone on the spot so you could join the Sanhedrin. You would take from the first row the person who was appropriate. And then and then when that happened, so then there was an empty spot in the first row, so someone from the second row would fill in the first row, and someone from the third row would go to the second row. Then you'd have to take someone, there's an empty spot now in the third row. He would sit in the third row. It wouldn't be, right, if this is, like we said, that they were ordered, the Mishnah is talking about that he had 3 extra rows of 23 Talmidim in the Sanhedrin in case you had to take someone off the case. You couldn't decide or something happened. So they were arrayed. The first row was the most chashuv, the second row was was less, and the third row was least. And then from right to left was also from more chashuv to least. So when someone left from the first row, you took from the second row and placed it in, and everyone would shift over. So we're saying that you didn't just stick the guy into the empty seat, everyone had to go to the place to be in the proper ranking. Where does this come from, that they were sat in a chatzi gairin, in a semicircle? Sherarecha agan hasoyar are we're gonna sherecha means your stomach. Agan hasoyar is like a kli that's the shape of the moon. Al yechsar hamazuk. It shouldn't be deprived of any of the dilution. That means you shouldn't over dilute it. So we teach this the Gemara dash and sherecha zu Sanhedrin. Sharecha is the Sanhedrin. The tibura is the navel. The Bezdin sat in Lishkas Hagazis, which was in the Beis Hamikdash, so in the center of the world. So they're compared to the navel. Again, and we said in a kli, Shemagina al kol ha'olam kuloi. They protect the entire world. Hasayar, which is the moon, she'idoim l'sayar. It's similar to the moon that it shines on everything. Al yachzar hamazig, it shouldn't be overly diluted. Shem hutzrach echad mehem lotzes, if one of them has to leave. Royim yesh eser v'shalosh connected and royim yesh had eser v'shalosh connected hektani yotze v'imlav eni yotze. If there's going to be still left a 23, then he could go out. But if not, he can't go out. You have to make sure that there's always a sufficient to remain a Sanhedrin. And then we continue with this same pasuk. Once we started it, we finished teaching it. But necha arimas chitin, your stomach is like a pile of wheat. Ma'ari mischitin akol nenem imena af Sanhedrin akol nenem mitaimein. Just like a bundle of wheat, everyone enjoys it. Everyone needs wheat. So too, the Sanhedrin, everyone, even if they're not coming to a court case, the fact that it's there teaches everyone. Everyone learns from it. The pasuk continues, Suga b'sheshanim, it's encircled with roses, Shafilu kesuga shoshanim lo yifritzu behen pirtis. That the Torah is such that even if it's surrounded with rules that are not, it's not deraisis, it's a weak, a hedge of roses is not a very strong barrier, right? It wouldn't work at the Mexican border to keep out the immigrants. You need to have a 30-foot wall. But around the Torah, we have siyagim, we have guardrails. That's enough for the Yid. This is the story that happened to where a certain Apikaris said to Rav Kahana, Amrisu nida shari liyichudu bahadi gavra. Your halacha is that the Apikaris said that a nida is mutter to stay with her husband. After eish bin oiros ve'enem evaheves. He says, is it possible, the min said, the Apikaris said, is it possible that there's a fire amongst the kindling and it doesn't cause it to catch fire? Meaning, can a person really withstand when his wife is a nida to resist the temptation? No, the Torah says, is made about the Yidden. Suga b'sheshanim, that even that it's encircled by roses. That even a hedge of roses is enough to that the Yidden are not going to be pirates, they're not going to break through. Like a portion of a riman, like a piece of riman, rakasecha, which we darshan afilu reikarin shabach malay mitzvahs kariban. Even those that are reik, even those that don't have a lot of mitzvahs, even those that are chasha, they're not the best Yidden, they're still as full of mitzvahs as a riman. Rav Zeir Amamehacha, Bayorach as reich begadav. It says that Yaakov, when he came to Yitzchak for the bracha, it says he smelled the reich of his clothing. Atriki begadav ela boigdav. He's talking about not the begadav, but rather those who rebel. Hanu bar yoini, and it will give an example that the even the smell of those who are not the best, the least of the Yidden, still is a reich for the reich nichayach for Hashem. So we're saying even that every Yid, like they say, like Joey Newcomb says, every Yid's a big tzaddik. Even a Yid who's not such a big tzaddik is also a big tzaddik. Yeah, exactly. Wait, it's going to get even better. Hanu Biryoini, there was this thug, to have a b'shviusa de Rav Zera. He lived in the neighborhood of Rav Zera, to have makarav lahu. Rav Zera was makarav him, he was being nice to him. In order that he should return b'tiyufta. He should return and he should become a Baal Tshuva. It's very interesting. Tiyufta, there's the people who go off the derech, they say the chayzer b'sheila. It's a play on Baal Tshuva, the chayzer b'sheila. But you see this Gemara, we call someone who's a chayzer b'tshuva as the nehadril hu b'tiyufta, that he returns to a question. Tiyufta is a question. So the Gemara calls a Baal Tshuva someone who's chayzer b'sheila, someone who questions his way of life is a Baal Tshuva. So I guess our term that we use might not be the Gemara's term. In any case, he used to try to be Makar of the people, the thugs in his neighborhood. The Rabbanan were not happy with this. They said, why are you busying yourself with these lowlifes? When Rav Zera passed away, until the Baryonim, these people who were struggling, said, this person with the burnt short legs, that was Rav Zera, there was a Maisa where he was short and he got burnt. Until now, he would daven for us. Hashtaman boyalon rachmi. Who's going to daven for us? They thought about it. They thought to themselves, and they did tshuva because of all the effort that he put in against the. It sounds like such a classic story, right? It goes through the dars. Rav Zera was Mimakarev, the people that were struggling, and the community was against him. They said, we have to kick them out. We got to be tough on them. And he never saw the Hatzlacha while he was alive. But after he died, they were Megala that it was affecting them. His efforts on their behalf, his tefillas on their behalf, none of them were wasted, and they did tshuva. They really wanted the benefit of tefillas, so they had to be mispal for themselves. It's a good story. Shalosh Suras. There were 3 rows, it said in the Mishnah, of Dayanim or Talmidim that was sitting around when the Sanhedrin was paskening. Amar Abaye Shmamino, he naidi kuli naidi. As soon as we said at the end that each one had to go to the proper place. Everyone went to the right. They used to go to the right spot. So you see, when one moved, everyone had to move to make place. So each person would be the most senior one would be the most up front, and the most junior would be the furthest away. The Gemara asks if there was someone who was all the way on the right, which is the most chashuv side of the second row, and now someone came from the first row and joined the Sanhedrin. So now he's going to go from being all the way on the right, which is the most chashuv part, to the other end, the furthest end of the next row. Amar Abaya, the Amilei Hachi. This is what you tell him. Haviz Novla Rayas Valti Roish Lashualim. Better to be the head of the tail of the lion, at the end of the first row, instead of better than that than being at the head of the second row. So that's the mission. We had said how what kind of intimidation. It was very limited. You could ask questions by Dinei Mamonos, but there was by Dinei Nefashos, there was such a thing. You would try to intimidate the witnesses to make them. We always try to find schusim in Dinei Nefashos. So they used to scare them. So how did you do that? Al Eidin Nefashos. How did you scare them? You bring them in, and you would scare them saying like this: Shemer Taimru Me'umad. Maybe you're saying this over because you figured it out. It's not that you actually saw what happened, but it was clear based on the context, based on circumstantial evidence. This is what happened. Like the Gemara will explain. Like if you saw 2 people go into a locked room and one of them is holding a knife, and you come in 5 seconds later and the knife's inside the guy and there's no one else around. That's not Eidus. Eidus is you have to actually see the act. It's not enough to say that you figured it out. Or maybe Shmua, maybe you heard it from someone else. Eid BP8, 1 aid from another aid. BP Adam Neman Shamo, maybe you heard it from someone you trust. Iatem Yoidim. Is this maybe the reason why you're saying this Eidus? Don't you know? We're going to ask a bunch of questions, and if you didn't actually see it, it's likely you're going to get caught. You should know. This is Dinei Nefashos, not the same thing as Dinei Mamonos. Dinei Mamonos, Adam Nois and Mamonos Kapeloi. If someone does something wrong, if he says Eidus, false Eidus in Dinei Mamonos, you could pay back the money and you'll get a kapara. Dinei Nefashos, Damai v'dam zaroisav tluyim by atzai fa'ilam. If you cause someone to get killed, there's never going to be a kapara. You've wiped him out, but you've not just wiped him out, you wiped out any future progeny that he was going to someday have. That's what we find by Kain and Hevel. Shahargas Achav, he killed Hevel. Shenem kol demei achicha tzayikim. The pasuk says that the voice of the bloods of your brother is calling out to me. Ein omer dam achicha. It doesn't say the blood. Ela demei achicha, plural. The bloods. Damai v'dam zaroisav. Because when Cain killed Hevel, he killed not only Hevel but everything that could have come out of him. Davar achar demei achicha. Another. This is all you have to keep in mind. This is a Mishnah. The Mishnah is telling us drashas. So another pshat in what the pasuk is telling you, demei achicha, shahayu damei mushlach al eitzim v'al avanim. That his blood was scattered over the wood and on the stones. It was all over the place. That's why it's called demei achicha. Nothing to do with the limud that we're making. Lefikach nivra ha'adam yechidi. This is why Adam Harishon was created alone, meaning that the Rebbeinu Shalom, why didn't the Rebbeinu Shalom make 1,000 people when he was B'yer the Olam? Why didn't he make a lot of people? Why did he only create one person that everyone descended from him? To tell you that every person is like Adam Harishon, that the whole world can come out of him. And someone who is Mekayim, one nefesh, it's as if he was Mekayim the whole world. We always say this thing, right? That he saved the whole world. But this is where we learn it out from the fact that the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world through the medium of a single person. To tell you that Adam Rishon was the whole world when he was born, and every person has that potential in him. And another reason why he created Adam Yechidi is Mnei Shalom Habrias. It's in order that people shouldn't fight. So one person would say, my father, I have better yichus than you. If someone says that, the other guy says to him, what are you talking about? We're all from Adam Rishon. You're not any better than me. We all come from the same person. Right? If there would be, you can imagine. If like the Hasidim from Bava 45 can't get along with Bava 48, you imagine if there were people who weren't just not from the same group, but they were they had different grandparents or they were different shvatim or some kehanim. They mamish came from different originators. Some people were bnei Adam and some people were bnei Maishi. So Rasham says that we don't want people to be what do you call it? There's a phrase in the Federalist Papers, factions. We don't want people to break up into factions. Another reason, if the world would have been created with multiple people at the same time, people would assume that they were created by different gods, right? If people can manage to imagine a whole pantheon back in Greece, even with there being just one person at the beginning, can you imagine if they created different people? They would for sure say each god created a different person. Also, to be Mishabech the Moshem, Adam Teveya Kama Matbeith B'Choisem Echad, Kun Diamond Zelazeh. When a person makes a mold to mint coins, every coin comes out the same. Everyone was created from the mold of Adam Harishon. Yet, even so, every person is unique. Therefore, everyone has to say that the world was created for me. Or like Rashi says, it's important to read the Rashi and this B'Shvili Nivra Olam. I am worthy as an entire world. Le'etrad, I don't know what it means. Mina Olam be'avera achas v'yimshach mimena. Adam, you shouldn't say that what I do when I do Averis, it's not going to make a difference. The whole world depends. I am treated like an entire world on myself by myself. I forgot. I figured it out last time, and now I don't remember what the ayin aleph ayin means. Adam echad min ha'olam, le'etchad echad min ha'olam, ba'avera achas, v'yimshech. Yeah, Adam. Yeah. So the Mara, B'Shema Taimru, maybe after all this, after all these exhortations, the aid is going to say, Malanu l'Torah hazais. Why should I say aid this? I can get in so much trouble. Like Farnemav, who aid I roy, Yodam lo-yagav v'nosa havaynai. There's a chiyuv, you have to say aidus. B'Shema Taimru, Malanu l'choiv b'dam shalzeh. And they'll say, but listen, I don't want to have on my hands. I'm going to say aidus. This guy's going to get killed. I don't want it on my hands. I don't want blood on my hands. When with the destruction of Rishayim, the Simcha, the Vayishalom is Mesameach in the destruction of Rishayim, and you're doing something good. Tana Rabbanan, Ketzad Mu'umad. What is this din that we said in the beginning of the Mishnah that the aid, you ask the aid, are you just doing it because you figured out what happened? Is it just circumstantial as opposed to seeing it with your own eyes? Maybe you saw like this. Achar Chaverei l'chorva. You saw Reuven running after Shimon into an empty, deserted place. Ratzam achrov, and you ran after them. Matzasam sayif biyadei. You found Reuven with a knife in his hand. V'damim etaftev, and the blood is dripping off the knife. V'harag mefarver, and the dead body is twitching. He was just stabbed a second ago. Im kach reisim lereisim klum. They tell him, Sanhedrin tells him, if that's what you saw nothing, that's not Eidus. You have to see the actual Maisa. Tanya Rishim ben Shetach, Ereb ben Nechama. There's a Lashon Shvua. Im loy re'isi echad sherotz achar chaver lechurva. This is exactly what happened to me. I saw someone running into an empty building. I ran after him. I saw a knife in his hand, and blood dripping. And the corpse was twitching. I said to this person who's holding the knife, who killed him? Was either me or you? And I know it wasn't me, so it must be you. But what am I going to do that I can't testify against you because I didn't see the actual act? It has to be al pishnayim edim. You have to be edim. You have to see it. The one who knows everyone's machshavas, the Rebbeinu Shalom, he should pay from you that you killed your friend. Amru, and Rav Zera says, while they were standing there, a snake came and bit the murderer and he died. Who? Did he really get killed with a nachash? For the time of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, Sanhedrin, even though the Sanhedrin was batal, so they couldn't paskin, but the Arba Mises Bezin were not batal. So Dr. Amar loy batlu, they weren't mavatal, the Arba Mises Bezin of batlu. They certainly couldn't paskin without the Sanhedrin. You can't paskin, you can't give capital punishment. So what does it mean? Din Arba Mises loy batlu. That the person who did something that's Machayev, one of the Mises Bezdin, the Rebbeinu Shalom arranges him to get that Misa. Mishin is Chayev Skila, someone who's Machayev Skila, he was over on Shabbos, Einaifel min Agag, he'll fall from a roof, Chayadar Sasa, he'll get trampled, which is similar to Skila. Mishin is Chayev Sreifa, Bas Kayin, Einaifel, but the Leika shall fall in a fire, and Nachash Makishay also will be bit by a snake, which is similar to Sreifa. Mishin is Chayev Hariga, someone who's Machayev to be killed. That means he's supposed to get his head cut off. So, which is for killing someone. He'll be executed by the secular law, or he'll fall into the hands of listim that will also stab him. And someone who gets strangling, he'll either drown, which is similar to strangling, or he'll die with choking. So how could it be that this murderer got bitten by a snake? Snake is like sreifa, and the person who kills is mechayiv and chanek. Dr. Mara Amri Yahu not chanek, Saif, supposed to get his head cut off. Amri Yahu chata achrita havabei. This person who killed had previously done something else that was mechayiv taka sreifa. So therefore, and Sreifa is worse than Saif. So he got the Muhammadic one, he got Sreifa. So we said, Mu'omid and Dinei Nefashos, a person cannot testify based on what he sees, based on circumstantial evidence. He has to see the actual Maisa. So the Gemara says, this that we say that you can't figure out what happened and testify it is only by Dinei Nefashos, but by Dinei Mamnis, where we described in the earlier Mishnah how a Yerma'im, we didn't say that you can't make such inference from what you see. Our Mishnah is command Ravacha. This is like Ravacha, who holds the taka in Dinei Mamnis. You can testify based on the circumstance. In Tanya Ravacha Eimer, Gamal Oicha ben Hagmal. If there was a Gamal who was breeding amongst the Gemalim, so they tend to get violent when they're breeding. Benimsa Gamal Harag Betzidai, and you find someone else's Gamal nearby that was killed by the animal that was in the middle of breeding, and when they're known to get violent, so you could assume that's what happened, even though you didn't see it. So you can testify that this one killed it. So the Gemara says this is our Mishnah from the fact that we just said that you can't do ma'umad, you can't use an aimid, an umdana, by Dinei Nefashos, it's mashma, like Ravacha, that by Dinei Mamres it is allowed. In fact, the Gemara l'tamech ein mipi'ei diktani b'Dinei Nefashos hudol yaminan v'habedinei Mamres amrinan. The Gemara says from the fact that we said this, that you warned them by Dinei Nefashos that ein mipi'ei is no good. That's mashma that according to the way you're teaching the Mishnah, that would be by Dinei Mamres. You can't say aid mipi'ei. You can't say by hearsay. You could say another aid told me. If the aid says that the owner, the person who's being the defendant, said that I'm chayiv, which was like we explained before, it's not a good hoidah. He has to give him hoidah and instruct him to be an aid. Or ish pliny amali shu chayiv, or a second person told me that he's chayiv. Loy amar klum. The second one is because it's aid mipi, even though this is dinei mamlis. Until he says that the defendant was made to me, that he said to me, I want you to be my aid, that I'm chayiv to him masayimzos. But in any case, you see that aid mipi aid by mamlis is no good. So you see, the fact that our Mishnah said by Dinei Nefashos, you tell him, and I'm not an aid mipi doesn't mean by Dinei Mamres it is good. So why are you saying L'gabi Mu'umid that we make that inference? So the Gemara says, our Mishnah does not necessarily agree with Ravacha that one can make an inference in Dinei Mamres. Even though we said it over here by Dinei Mamres, it doesn't necessarily mean that our Mishnah paskans like Ravacha. It could be it doesn't paskan like that. Dr. Gemara, what do you
mean he doesn't paskan like that?
I'm saying our Mishnah does not necessarily hold. We wanted to say, command Ravacha, the Tanya Ravacha. We said that our Mishnah is like the bright. It's not necessarily true. It could be doesn't. Our Mishnah does not agree to that. We wanted to bring another Tana that says the same thing as Ravacha. So he said, Haviyoidim, that, what was that, Haviyoidim? You should say, I don't know, we're going to have to see, because I don't want to spend too much time finding exactly where it said this. But it says, Dr. Gemara, lost my place now altogether.
Third white line.
Oh. Haviyoidim, Amar Yehuda, Breder of Chia, Melamed She'asakayim Behevel Achav Chaburas. We see from here, from the fact that it says Demei Achicha, that he made many wounds. Ptzias, he didn't know. It says that the blood was all over the Avanim and on the Eitzim and Avanim because he had to make a lot of holes. So he didn't know. No one had ever killed anyone before. He didn't know what would kill him. So he kept on stabbing him until he reached his neck and therefore only killed him. Pascha Aretz as Pia v'Kiblase l'Damei shel Hevel, from the time that the earth opened up its mouth and was makabel the blood of Hevel, Shuv like Pascha, the mouth of the Eretz didn't open up. Shenemer miknaf Aretz emira shamanu, from the edge of the earth, I'm going to hear the earth praising. Tzvila tzaddik, praises to the tzaddik, to the Rebbe Shalom. So the Gemara, miknaf Aretz v'lo pi Aretz. Normally you'd say mi pi Aretz, the from the mouth of the Aretz, but it says from the edge of the earth because it was closed up from the time as a punishment because the earth swallowed up the dam of Hevel. Esvei Chizkiya Achiv Vatifta, Chizkiya's brother asked Vatiftach Aretz as Pia. It says by Kairach that the earth opened up its mouth to swallow them up. The punishment was that it couldn't open up its mouth to praise Hashem, but it could be involved in the sordid affair of Kairach. That was not a bracha that the Eretz had the ability to swallow it up with its mouth. Galus mekaperes ovain mechza. Galus is mechaper on half of an oven. It says at the beginning, the Gabi Kayin, his gzeira was he should be a nov and nod, he should be a wanderer, but it says in the double lush. It says in the end that he lived in Noid. So all that was left, he did Shuvah, and then all that was left was he stayed in Noid, but it didn't have Nov and Nod, so it was split in half. That's the way I read it, even though I didn't see that on Rashi. Amr Yehuda, Galus mekaper shloishet varm. It's mechaper on three things. Shenemar, Kayamar Hashem, Hayoishev Be'ir Hazois Yamas B'charav Rav U'Bedever. He said that this is when who was it? In Yirmiyah was telling the Yidden they should leave Yerushalayim and surrender. He says if you're going to stay, you're going to die by the sword and with famine and in plague. And those who leave and surrender to the Kazdim, you're going to live. You'll be able to save your lives. So you see that with the tshuva, if they're going to be when they go into Galus, that will save them from the three Xeris of Cherev and Rav and Dever. He says, no, Galus is mechaper on everything. Shenemar, Kayamar Hashem, Kisur Shas Hazeh Ariri. It's saying about, I forgot who it was. Was maybe Yechanya? I don't remember. In any case, it says about this man, Gever la Yitzlach b'yamav. He's going to be Ariri. He's not going to have children. He's not going to be Matzliach. Ariri. He's not going to be Matzich. Kila Yitzlach Mizarei Ish Yoshev al Kisei David u'Moishel Oid b'Yehuda. And it's not going to be any descendants from him. This is talking about the king, that he's not going to have any children. They're going to sit on the Malchus of David or the Malchus of Yehuda. Ubasa the Galus. Even after, I think it's Yechanya went into Galus, it says, Ubnei Yechanya Asir Shaltiel Benoi. These were his children. So you see, he did, even though it said he was going to be Ariri, it says he went into Galus, and then he did have children. Asir Shivarta Imai Bebeis Asurin. One was called Asir because she was conceived. This child was conceived in the Beis Asur when Yechanya was in Galus. He was put into jail. Shaltiel Sheshoslu Al Shaloi Kederach Hanishtalin. He was conceived in an irregular way. Sheina Isa Gemir Sheina Isha Misaveres Mu'mid Behina Savra Mu'mid. A woman that normally cannot be Misaber when she's standing, and he conceived her while she was standing. Davar Acha Shaltiel Shenishal Al Losai. Al Zerubbabel Shenishal Al Losai. He was the Sheila, he was Sheil on a nether. He was, you see that Yechanya got a reprieve. He was Sheil on the curse that was given to him that he's not going to have children. Al Zerubbabel Shenizra B'Bavel. It's also called Zerubbabel because he was conceived in Bavel. Amashmoy Nechemia ben Chachalia. His name was really Nechemia ben Chachalia. Shmoy. Okay, we'll stop over here.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Are we considering going?
Which thing? The copper and everything?
Yeah.
I hope you don't have any curses that you need a kapara for.
Everybody has.
Everyone has
we all
their-
have Yom Kippur.
We all have our issues.